Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, a Chinese engineer sentenced to 4 months behind bars for stealing Apple's trade secrets. What he lifted before he tried to flee back to China. China's increasing build-out of weapons inside critical American infrastructure, poised to attack any time Beijing decides the time is right. A warning from the FBI director. Get ready to dive into China's latest craze, the lying flat lifestyle. Why are more young people choosing to put work on the back burner? Meet Chu Yi and uncover why she's part of the rising trend. And an analysis says looking at China's economic performance, its real GDP for 2023 should be below 1%. Some even giving negative numbers. We talked to an expert on China's economy. Trade secrets stolen from Apple. A former engineer with the company sentenced to 4 months behind bars for the theft. Engineer Zhang Xiaolong worked on Apple's highly secretive self-driving car project starting 2015. He designed circuit boards for the project. 3 years later, he left his job to join Chinese automotive company XPeng. 3 days before he left Apple, Zhang's activity in the company's network spiked. His internet activities in those 3 days surpassed the past 2 years combined. That's when Apple got suspicious and launched an investigation. They found Zhang downloaded highly classified materials and planned to sell them to the Chinese auto company. He stole a hard drive, circuit boards, and a server, plus documents about the engineering behind the circuit boards. Zhang was arrested in 2018 at an airport before he was able to get on a plane and fly back to China. He now faces 4 months in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of over $140,000. 2 more former Apple engineers were also accused of stealing trade secrets. One fled to China, another tried to flee but failed. His case is going forward in a California court. Chinese theft of U.S. technology is nothing new. Here's a look at some of the cases that authorities uncovered in recent years. In Tennessee, chemist Shannon Yu was convicted of stealing trade secrets from Coca-Cola, which cost over $1 billion to develop. The chemist used the stolen trade secrets to set up a new company in China, which receives millions of dollars in grants from the Chinese regime. In Oklahoma, a scientist named Hongji Tan was sentenced to 2 years in prison. That's for stealing $1 billion worth of information from the petroleum company he worked for. And in Missouri, a Chinese national stole trade secrets from agricultural giant Monsanto to benefit the Chinese regime. In Ohio, a Chinese state security officer was convicted of trying to steal technology from General Electric. That innovation deals with aircraft engine fans. It's a GE exclusive that no other company has been able to replicate. Also, in Ohio, the DOJ sentenced former hospital researcher Li Chen to 30 months in prison. Li conspired to steal research from one of America's largest pediatric research centers, where she used to work. The verdict says Li used the stolen trade secrets to get benefits from the Chinese regime. A serious threat facing America, FBI Director Christopher Wray warning Chinese cyber attacks are already in position to attack the U.S. and that Chinese infiltration is reaching something closer to a fever pitch.
China doesn't partner, it bullies. And it bullies targets at every level, from individuals to businesses and organizations to governments.
Speaking at the Munich Cybersecurity Conference Thursday, Wray said the U.S. is now seeing China's buildup of weapons hidden inside America's critical infrastructure. He noted that they are poised to attack whenever Beijing decides the time is right. Wray also mentioned a Chinese hacking operation recently busted by the FBI. Chinese hackers broke into the computer networks of some major U.S. water, energy, and transportation systems, and they held onto that access for at least 5 years. The backdoor could have allowed them to disrupt U.S. water supplies and energy controls. U.S. officials said they've cut off the Chinese hackers' access to the systems, but warned that the hackers are looking for new ways to get back in.
Is massive. China's hacking program is larger than that of every other major nation combined. And that size advantage is only magnified because the PRC uses AI, built in large part on stolen innovation and stolen data, to improve its hacking operations, including to steal yet more AI tech and data.
PRC stands for People's Republic of China, the country's formal name. Ray urged Congress to invest more in its cyber capabilities to deter cyber threats from China. As of now, Chinese hackers outnumber cyber personnel by at least 50 to 1. Cheap price tags meeting a lavish marketing endeavor. Chinese-backed online superstore Temu dropping $21 million on 3 Super Bowl ads this year. That's along with $15 million in giveaways. That's despite allegations against the app of forced labor and counterfeit goods. And TikTok CEO facing intense scrutiny over ties to the Chinese Communist Party. To discuss more on the controversies and the dark side of social media, we sat down with Rex Lee, cybersecurity advisor at MySmart Privacy. Rex Lee, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show, Tiffany.
Now, in what way has social media been identified as an instrument of hybrid warfare?
First of all, people have to understand what is a social media platform, whether it's developed by ByteDance, TikTok, which is the parent company to TikTok, or Facebook and Instagram, which is developed by Meta. These companies are in the information trafficking business. A single intrusive app enables the developer to conduct audio, video, and physical surveillance on the end user because the apps are able to enable the developer to gain control of the camera, the microphone, and sensors such as the accelerometer, so they can actually do physical surveillance on you aside from audio and video surveillance, meaning that they know when you're sitting, walking, or in transit as long as you have your device with you.
What types of legislation have been proposed so far? There's a few in the books, such as CSAM Act, the Earn It Act, the SHIELD Act, the Project Safe Childhood Act, several of these. What is being done about this?
These acts and these bills are being lobbied by lobbyists. It was a year ago in March that ByteDance CEO Chu was also in front of Congress. You had the same senators grilling him about TikTok. Fast forward a year later, TikTok has spent over $100 million, probably more like $200 million in ad campaigns. What it looks like to me is that these congressional hearings are actually a form of a shakedown where they pull these CEOs in front of them and then they tell them that they're going to end their business practices and end their businesses as a threat. And then after the congressional hearings are over, the checkbooks start coming out, the lobbyists start paying up, and then again, it goes silent for about a year or two. This is a pattern. This goes back 10 years. Everything goes silent. It's business as usual. Then they get run in front of the public again.
To your point, we saw Temu all over the Super Bowl. That was just last weekend. Given all of this, though, what needs to be done to break that pattern?
There's already laws on the books, and what needs to happen is the new legislation needs to be pushed through and existing laws need to be enforced. That's what needs to happen today.
Rex Lee, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
A plea from U.S. partners in the Pacific. Leaders from 3 Pacific nations writing to Congress, asking lawmakers to approve funding for economic assistance. They're in dire need of the support, but funding has been delayed for months. These nations are Palau, Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands. They sit on strategic locations in the Pacific. Having influence in these locations could prove critical in times of war. And Beijing has been working to expand its control in the region. China signed a security pact with the Solomon Islands in 2022. The deal raised alarms in the West because it could pave the way for a Chinese military base on the island, just 1,000 miles off the coast of Australia. To counter Beijing's inroads, Washington signed a deal with 3 nations there last year. Under it, America would provide financial support. In exchange, the U.S. can block other countries from entering their waters. The program is called Compacts of Free Association, or COFA. Congressional aides said they're looking for ways to approve the funding, but there's no guarantee. Right now, Micronesia and the Marshall Islands are not getting any money. Palau receives a trickle of U.S. funding, and it's set to expire in September. Pacific leaders said the delay has generated uncertainty. At the same time, they're under pressure from China to cut support for Taiwan. Faced with diminishing job prospects as the economy slows, Chu Yi is one of many young Chinese choosing to lie flat, a term used to describe people who work just enough to get by and afford to spend their time on what they enjoy. Here's her story.
Chu Yi used to have a corporate job in fashion, but she quit after 2 years to become a tattoo artist because she hated her boss and often had to work overtime. The 23-year-old is part of a broader trend in China called lying flat, a term used to describe people who work just enough to afford to spend time doing what they enjoy. Chu now works just 1 day a week from home for a travel company and spends the rest of her time practicing tattooing as part of a 6-month apprenticeship.
In the past, when I was working, I would wake up at 8 o'clock every day and then get home at 10 o'clock in the evening. Every day I worked in front of the computer for 8 or even 10 hours. As my posture is a little wrong, then my shoulder immediately started having problems. And my spine was also in a lot of pain. And then with endless overtime and meetings, it made my spirit very tired.
There are around 280 million young Chinese who, like Chu, are born between 1995 to 2010. And surveys show that this Generation Z is the most pessimistic of all age groups in the country. There is no data on how many young Chinese are opting out of corporate jobs. But as the economy slows, the youth have faced diminishing job prospects. In June 2023, China's youth jobless rate rose to a record high of 21%. The average expected salary for new hires in 2023 dropped in 38 key cities, the worst drop since 2016, according to an online recruiting platform. All this poses a key policy-making challenge for Chinese President Xi Jinping. Yan Chou is an assistant professor of sociology at the University of Michigan.
In the Chinese context, it is also impossible to overlook a sense of pessimism that underlies these trends as well. China has seen tremendous educational expansion in the past several decades. And for youth today, getting a college education so that you can get a job remains a certain kind of truism. Yet what we are observing is China's economy slows and the labor market prospect remains bleak. So it's a profoundly challenging mismatch for young people to navigate as they try to find their place in the world and strive to a path of social mobility.
Chu and many others like her are choosing to prioritize their own well-being and interests over corporate life. She says she's much happier for doing so.
Right now, I'm a lot more satisfied. I think taking my current salary and 7,000 yuan that I saved from my previous job and really using it all for my own time to do things that make me happy, I think to me it's worthwhile.
As almost all the economic indicators in China are going down dramatically, some experts project that China's GDP last year likely fell below 1% or even went negative. These estimates sharply contrast with Beijing's official figure of about 5%. We hear from Professor Feng Xie to learn more about the situation. He's a professor of marketing at the University of South Carolina-Aiken and an expert on China's economy.
China is losing steam across key sectors, including domestic consumption, imports and exports, the real estate market, and stock markets. What's more, the youth unemployment rate is sky high, estimated by some experts to exceed 40%. GDP is designed to reflect a country's economic growth. And based on that,
my estimate is that the Chinese economy is probably in recession, like minus 4 or 5%.
Xie is not the first to make such a bold estimate. Xu Chenggang is a senior researcher at the Stanford Center on China's Economy and Institutions. He reasons China's GDP is very likely below 1%. While a Japanese news agency reports the data could range between -2 and -3.2%. Xie says it's unlikely China's economy will rebound anytime soon, adding the West's efforts to decouple and de-risk from China play a role.
I think there could be, with that, the economic situation worsening every day, there is a chance that it's going to affect the Chinese political system.
The Chinese Communist regime has a history of fabricating its data.
Next, we'd like to take a moment to share some of your comments about our show. A number of viewers sent in comments about a story we covered on Wednesday about the Chinese Communist Party enlisting soldiers with a focus on recruiting manpower from rural areas. A viewer by the name of Amateur Asian took a sarcastic jab at the situation in China, writing, "Gotta admire how efficiently the CCP does things, make the economy as hard as they can so people that can't afford living in the city will be forced to go back to rural places, and then recruit them and promise a better permanent salary by serving. They can even force them to be cannon fodder for the Communist Party." Another viewer called White Dragon cast doubt on the combat effectiveness of the Chinese army, asking, "China expects a major war and is setting up for it, but will they be able to hold up to it? Having a huge army is not enough. You must feed, house, and train them, supply and support them, and have a winning strategy. Will their soldiers fight? Will the tofu dregs equipment work?" Don't forget to tell us what you think of today's show, or if you have an idea for something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 3 years. If you'd like to support us, consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus or subscribe to our partner platform Epic TV, where you can watch our full episodes. Here's what to look out for in our second half. A deep freeze and heavy blizzards blanketed across the northwestern Xinjiang region. The inclement weather also brought extra chores to one Chinese household. Moving to Germany, the top diplomats from Washington and Beijing are reportedly having a sideline conversation, possibly to prepare for upcoming talks between the top leaders. And state-backed hackers from Russia, China, and Iran have been using Microsoft's AI products to perfect their skills. A cybersecurity threat intelligence lead at OpenAI weighs in on the new tactics. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you soon.